Welcome everyone to today's webinar hosted by Caring.com. Now, our mission at Caring.com is to help as many seniors as possible find the care that they need, which is why we partner with home care, home health, and hospice agencies to provide referrals. And while we hope that these referrals empower you to grow your agency, we understand that there are other challenges when it comes to growth besides just getting new clients. You need to hire and train caregivers. You need to manage your operation, build your reputation, which is why we are very excited to be joined by Home Care Pulse today to discuss the top findings from their 2023 benchmarking report and how these insights can help you strengthen and grow your business. As always, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items as we begin. First off, this is a one-way webcast, meaning that only the presenters will have video and audio throughout today's presentation. But we would still love to hear from you. At any point throughout today's webinar, if you have a question, please submit using the Q&A section within Zoom. We will be answering those questions live at the end of our presentation. One of the questions that we always receive is, will this webinar be recorded? And the answer is yes. We are recording today's presentation, and we'll send out both the recording and the slides in the next couple of days. You can also visit our entire webinar archive on partners.caring.com. My name is Olivia Duke, and I'm the B2B Marketing Director here at Caring, and I'll be serving as the moderator for today's presentation. More importantly, I'm pleased to introduce Caleb Hendricks. He's the Director of Sales, at Home Care Pulse, and he'll be walking you through the key findings from this year's report. And at this point, I'll hand it over to Caleb to tell you a little bit more about Home Care Pulse and their annual benchmarking report.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Olivia. Super excited to be here with Caring.com and Olivia and all of you. I'm looking through the attendees list, and I'm already recognizing a bunch of names. You know, Rich, I see you out there. Sylvia, I see you out there. So I know I've talked to a lot of you guys this year, and I look forward to speaking to the rest of you. But like Olivia said, what we're going to focus on today is findings from the HCP benchmarking report. So wanted to give you a little history on that for those of you that are not familiar with HCP or with Home Care Pulse. So we have now been releasing the benchmarking report now for 14 years. This is our 14th year, which is super exciting. It is bigger and more comprehensive than ever with more participants than ever. So really a ton of good data in there. We could sit here for the next 6 hours and I could go over a lot of data points. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time. So what we're going to do today is just hit on a few points. Obviously, you know, here at Home Care Pulse, we do a variety of different things. The benchmarking report is one of the things. But what we love about the benchmarking report is it gives us a lot of insight into what's going on in the industry year in, year out, right? For those of you that have been in the home care space for a long time and are familiar with Home Care Pulse, you know that we really focused on experience management for the longest time, right? Surveying your caregiver, surveying your clients, getting an inside pulse on what's going on inside of your business, what's working, what's not working, and so forth. And what we've seen over the last couple of years is there's been new problems, new things. And so what we've done as a company is we've been able to add new products onto our suite of products, as well as acquire some companies and acquire some products that are able to help the home care industry overcome some of these issues as well. So, and I'll mention those as well today. Obviously, some of our findings are like, hey, here's the finding, here's the result of the finding, and then how can we apply that, right? So I'm going to go over 3 things in each section, and let me see if I can get this going here. I got to wait for the delay. But we're going to go over 3 things in each section. We're going to go over the finding, the result, and then we're also going to go over the application. Oh, I clicked way too many times. There we go. So I'm going to go over a few different sections. Like I said, we could sit here all day long, and I could talk to you guys for the next 6 hours about all the findings and all the data points in the benchmarking study. So if you haven't got your hands on the benchmarking report, I would highly suggest it. Don't buy it right now while I'm talking. At the end of this, I will have a code for everyone on this webinar today that will get you $600 off of the report. So wait until it's over before you buy it if you're going to buy it, if you don't already have it. So we're going to go over, a key finding from each section. First, we're going to go over sales and marketing, recruitment and retention, which seems to be a hot topic, training, finance, operations, and then ultimately customer and employee experience. And like I said before, we're going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about what the finding is in each one of those sections, what the result is, and then what the application is. So the first one, Sales and marketing, right? It pays to create a buzzworthy reputation in the post-acute care industry. So what does that mean? We found in this last year, which is higher than it's ever been, 1/3 of all revenue actually came from customer referrals, which is big, right? I think it's up. I think last year, or 2 years ago, I guess now, was about 1/4 of all revenue was from customer referrals, and now it's up to 1/3 of all revenue is from customer referrals. So what is the finding here, right? The finding is, as the top marketing source with the lowest turnover rate from home care, hospice, and home health. So not only is it your lowest turnover rate, they're also going to stay the longest, right? So if you're not doing something here, and like I said, I'm going to talk about the results and the application here, but interesting here, right? It's the top marketing source with the lowest turnover rate for the home care, hospice, or home health and hospice industries, which is huge because I think everyone on this call today would agree that turnover is, if not our biggest problem, one of our biggest problems. So one way, I know we're going to get into talking a little bit about, recruitment and retention here shortly, but one way to get in front of that is, if you're not generating referrals from your current customers and employees, that is the best way to do it. It comes with the lowest turnover rate. So the result of that is providers who tracked every inquiry about their services saw a higher median revenue by over $1.2 million compared to those who didn't track all inquiry. So, here at Home Care Pulse, we are very, very data driven. Obviously, we have a huge book that we put out with all the data. It is super, super important to be tracking every single thing that comes in. So the application to that is, what do we need to do, right? We need to create a buzzworthy reputation. And 26.8% of the providers, which is probably over 1/4 of you on this call today, stated that at the beginning of 22, you were prioritizing strengthening your relationship with your referral sources, right? That's external referral sources and external referral sources. So the application here is, if you are not working on getting referrals, that is something you need to put in your game plan for the remainder of 2023 and the beginning of 2024, because it has only been increasing year after year, the amount of revenue it's bringing in, as well as it's also the lowest turnover that you're gonna find in the industry. So with that, one thing, like I said, we've been able to jump in with your Home Care Pulse and add some additional tools that the post-acute care industry can use. One thing that we've done is we've partnered with Great Places to Work. Some of you may be using this already. A handful of you are probably using this already. I would guess the majority of you have all seen this, right? This is not just a home care specific award, but this actually goes across all industries. If any of you have flown Delta lately, you'll notice when you get on the plane, right on the side of the plane, Delta was rated a great place to work. But the cool thing is when you get this award, results come with it, right? 20% more increase in employee applicant, increased customer and employee referrals, and improved employee retention. So something that we would suggest looking into. We just became essentially a third-party dealer for Great Places to Work for the post-acute care industry, or what they call it is aging services. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely let us know. But it's a great way to get your name out there and bring in more referrals. Everyone wants to work for a top brand. So with that being said, recruitment and retention is something that we've all been focused on these last couple of years. Providers are losing customers and employees, to quick wins. Retention is more of an investment, right? I think we've all learned over this last 3 years, ever since COVID, that there is a caregiver shortage, right? And one thing that we've learned here is, I don't think that it's solved by recruitment. I think where it's solved is retention, right? If we can continue to recruit at the pace that we have over the last few years, but then improve our retention rate and decrease our turnover rates, we should be able to catch up with the caregiver shortage. So something really, really interesting is the turnover rate went up by 12% this last year. Previous 3 years, so 2019, 2020, 2021 was all pretty stagnant at 64, 65%. This last year, it jumped by 12%. I know I can't see any of you, none of you have your cameras on, but I can imagine the majority of you are probably shaking your head saying, yep, that's us, right? So the finding is it went up by 12%, which is pretty significant, especially when you keep in mind the average turnover in home care costs you $2,600 per caregiver you lose. In home health and hospice, it's $4,000 that you're losing every time you lose one of your care staff, right? So not only is it painful, but it's also painful financially. So the finding is, it went up 12%. I'm hoping that we can all get on top of this. We're taking action to work on that, and next year we're dropping back down by 12%, if not more. So the result of this was 3/4 of all providers had to turn down cases due to care professional shortages, which is why 40% of all providers are prioritizing recruitment and retention programs. So, which is crazy to think about, right? 3 out of 4 of us on this call today turned down cases in this last year because we didn't have care staff to take care of them. One thing we did see though is providers that were paying above the 75th percentile, and every region's different. So depending on what your 75th percentile is, we have all this information in our benchmarking report. But providers that were paying above that 75th percentile saw a 12.6% decrease in turnover than everyone else in the industry. So obviously, paying more is not the solution to everything, but you can see here it does help. It does help with the turnover rate, especially if you're in the 75th percentile. You don't have to be the top paying person. Our data showed that if you were the 100th percentile or the 75th percentile, your turnover rates were the same. But you do need to be in that upper quartile. So with that being said, when we talk about recruitment, right, with this caregiver shortage that the majority of us are facing, wanted to show this graph here because it shows where we're recruiting the majority of caregivers or care staff. Number one is still Indeed, the internet. Our average acquisition for care staff on Indeed is $367. However, you can see here the issue with that is 85% turnover when we recruit from Indeed, right? So yes, are we getting the most headcount from Indeed? Absolutely. Is it the most expensive? No, it's not. However, it is the biggest turnover rate, right? So there, you've got to weigh your pros and cons there. The second one down is obviously, your employees doing different employee referral programs. It does have a higher, acquisition cost than Indeed or the internet. However, the median turnover rate there does drop pretty significantly by about 12%. The number one, which we've highlighted here, is not only is referrals or word of mouth or your reputation the number one referral source when it comes to both acquisition cost as well as turnover rates, right? So you're paying less for this as well as you are paying a lot less out the back door as well with a lower turnover rate. And then you can continue to see, another top resource, My CNA Jobs, the highest acquisition cost of all of them, and still a higher turnover rate than word of mouth, and then ultimately internet, your website, your social media, things like that. The lowest acquisition cost of all of them, however, the highest turnover rate. So something to think about there. Obviously, there's not a perfect solution. I would suggest diversifying yourself. But you can see here, if you just want to go low cost, low turnover, referrals, your reputation, word of mouth referrals are where your lowest turnover rate and your lowest cost of acquisition is going to come from. So the application on this, to resolve this recruitment and retention black hole, it's worth investing in compensation packages being in that 75th percentile and recruitment sources that produce long-term satisfied employees that pay off in the long run, right? I will mention, and we work with, thousands and thousands of agencies across the country. There is no silver bullet, right? I hope no one jumped on this call today thinking Caleb's going to share with us the silver bullet to recruitment and retention or anything else. There's no silver bullet in the home care. I think we've all been here long enough to know that. However, there is long-term solutions that do pay off in the long run. However, there are things like your reputation. There are things like your overall satisfaction with your employees that take a long time to build, but in the long run, those things pay off. One thing that we've really focused on is a new product that we brought out at the beginning of this year, and I know some of you are familiar with it when I saw your name. Is this new product we call Retain. And what we want to do is we want to focus within the first 90 days or 100 days of employment. What we've noticed is 40% of your staff will leave within the first 90 days or 100, 3 months or 100 days, right? So if we can get them through that first 3 months, they're usually more likely to stay. So what we've really been focusing on here at Home Care Pulse is reaching out and checking the pulse of your new care staff, or of all of your employees within that first 100 days, to really find out, are they satisfied? Are they happy? How's everything going? Training. This one's interesting, right? Over the last couple years, training has been the #1 complaint from both your care staff, and then this last year in 2022, it is also the #1 complaint from your clients as well, that they don't feel like your care staff is sufficiently trained. So professional trainings programs not only produce the highest ROI, and they cost the least in the long run. So what was the finding? Offering an additional 5 hours of training, both orientation and ongoing in home care, and 8 hours in home health and hospice was the difference between being extremely impacted by staff shortages and not at all. So what we found in here is we found the agencies that were doing more than just the bare minimum compliance, like it shows here, 5 hours in home care and 8 hours in home health and hospice. If you are offering, that's on top of your bare minimum compliance, the turnover rate with those agencies was significantly lower than the agencies that were just doing the bare minimum. The overall satisfaction was much higher than the agencies that were just doing the bare minimum. Something also interesting to think about, I know there's a lot of different agencies on here right now. How are you providing this training for your agencies, right? 74%, nearly 75%, or 3/4 of providers now use a professional training program to generate the highest revenue and lowest overall cost of turnover rate. While in-house training cost is still training is still the lowest cost, it also produces the lowest revenue because it also comes with the highest turnover rate and least satisfaction when it comes to training. I'm not saying that's for everyone. I'm saying this is generalized, right? This is all the data compiled. However, it also produces the lowest when you're doing in-house training, even though it might be costing you the less. You need to look at the whole picture of how much it's costing you with turnover as well. So, and then ultimately here, like I said, it will cost you less, but you probably will make less as well if you're doing in-house training, compared to where the other 75% of the industry is gone. The nice thing about all training providers, obviously I'll pitch Home Care Pulse because we provide that, but also, all the other training providers out there, it's really, really convenient for any care staff to be able to get on at any time, take a course right there from their cell phone, take a course anywhere they have, access to a computer or iPad. Just makes it really, really convenient. So, and it's all done by nurse educators, right? All of our courses are written by RN, so it's very, very applicable and engaging. So what's the application? The application is seeing an increase of $681,000 in revenue by offering at least 8 hours of orientation and 12 hours of ongoing training annually. So the agencies that did this, that were offering at least 8 hours of orientation and 12 hours of ongoing training, so a total of 20 hours annually of training, had an annual revenue of $681,000 higher than agencies that were just doing the bare minimum compliance training. So I know it's an investment. We hear that all the time. However, if you look at the numbers, there's a huge ROI in offering training. So like I said, if you guys want to learn more about training, I won't spend a ton of time about what we offer, but there's a lot of good third-party trainings out there that are going to be way more engaging and way more convenient than doing an in-house training. So finance, right? Let's talk about some money things as well. The success of the industry lies in the ability to retain hourly care employees. However, turnover is the worst it has been in the last 5 years, as I mentioned before. So how do we make money with the lowest turnover, right? So the median revenue, the good news is over the last year, the median revenue rose by over 50,000 this last year. However, something super interesting is the amount of billable hours was the lowest it had been in the last 5 years, right? So what do I learn from that? I learned that we're billing more, however, we have the lowest billable hours. Where I think the biggest issue here is, as I look at the data, is 3/4 of providers are turning down cases due to staff shortages, right? So it's not like that we don't have the demand for billable hours, and it's not like people aren't needing those hours covered. Unfortunately, the majority of agencies, 75% of agencies out there, aren't able to staff those hours and bring in more money. So our bill rates are up, right? However, the billable hours are down. So what's the result of that? And hourly care remains the top service offering, producing 85% of total revenue, right, is hourly care. It will be imperative for providers to recruit and retain hourly care staff to keep up with the demand. And like I said earlier, that's the majority of all of our businesses is hourly care, right? However, we're coming up a little short of staff. I don't think the secret here is necessarily recruitment. We've been recruiting, trying different things recruiting as long as the home care industry has been around. We have a lot of competition out there, maybe more competition than ever, with these Amazon warehouses popping up everywhere, different restaurants, you name it, right? McDonald's paying $15 an hour. There's a lot of competition we have now. However, I think the true secret here to overcoming this is to be able to keep our caregivers that we currently have, keep them satisfied, and keep them with us long term. So the application here is an effort to bridge the gap. Providers are diversifying their top 5 payer sources, right? Becoming more and more creative. Private pay is still going to be the #1 right now, but working into long-term insurances, Medicaid waiver programs, veteran administration programs, and direct medical billing. There's a lot of companies out there that can help you diversify your top 5 payer sources and even beyond your top 5. So operation. Customer turnover rate has been declining for the last 5 years, but less than 1/3 of providers are capitalizing on that success. So what does that mean? Customer turnover rate dropped by 5%, which is great, right? It's the lowest turnover rate that we've seen on your client or customer side in the last 5 years. And it's only at 50% turnover rate. Like I said, it's been the lowest it has been. However, with that being said, only 26% of providers are taking advantage of reputation management software to solicit and collect these positive reviews, right? So it seems like the overall satisfaction and the turnover rate of your clients has gone down. However, there hasn't been a huge focus. Only 26% of providers are saying it is a focus to get this reputation out there, right? To get these Google reviews out there, to get these reviews on caring.com, to get these reviews on other websites that are super important, especially when it comes to SEO, right? We're now in 2023 when mom and dad or grandma and grandpa need care. Their adult children are probably thinking, okay, where's the best home care place in North Carolina? Where's the best home care place in Miami, Florida, right? And when they look that up, they're going to the internet. And what are they finding? They're finding what the best reputation, who has the best reputation online, and they're most likely making that call. So this was a little surprising for me that only 26% of providers were using reputation management software. There is a lot of ways to get your reputation out there and to get reviews on caring.com, to get reviews on Google, to get reviews on Facebook, right? Those are super, super imperative now. Everyone lives on their phone. I can speak for myself. I don't ever go to a new restaurant without first looking up the Yelp reviews, right? I want to see what the food looks like, and I want to hear what people are saying about it. The same thing with, care. What home health are we going to use? What home care are we going to use? What hospice are we going to use when we get to that point, right? People want to know that other people had good experiences with that. So if you're not doing something right now to get your online reputation boosted, to get more reviews, this is super, super important, and it's only going to become more and more important. Also, something interesting here, less than 1/3 of providers are tracking hospital readmission. So there's more that providers need to track to improve revenue, including crucial KPIs like hospital readmission rates, a metric less than 1/3 of providers are currently tracking. So if you're not tracking your data, so you can share that with the world and they know what they're getting into as well, these KPIs are super, super important. Hospital readmissions rate, I mentioned this one because it's become one of the most popular ones over the last year. So like I said, we help you with that here at Home Care Pulse. We help get your overall satisfaction and then help you get it to websites automatically like caring.com and help you solicit for online reviews on Facebook and Google as well. Customer and employee experience. I'm really, really passionate about this. When I came to Home Care Pulse 5 years ago, this is all we focused on was the data and then customer and employee experience, right? So providers who gather and act on employee and customer feedback retain customers 20% longer. So some interesting data that we found over the last year, which was actually really, really surprising to me. The overall employee satisfaction score is 9.1 out of 10, which is great, right? We think like, okay, that's 91% are saying they're overall satisfied. And those of you that are working with Home Care Pulse right now, you know that we ask your clients and your caregivers a series of questions. And in that series of questions, we're asking them, you know, like, how's your training going? How's your communication? How's the compatibility, you know, with your care staff or with the client? We're asking a series of questions, right? And that's what compiled the overall satisfaction score. This is one of the highest ones we've ever seen, 9.1. However, the interesting thing is, if I go to my next slide, the employee net promoter score actually dropped to 6.7%. So the difference here is the overall satisfaction is high. However, the net promoter score, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, is the question, how likely would you be to recommend Caring.com, for example, or Synergy Home Care, or anyone else, right? How likely are you to recommend them? Only 6.7 are saying, yes, we would be willing to recommend. However, 9.1 are saying they're overall satisfied. So what we're getting here is the overall, the satisfaction scores go up, but obviously we're missing something here, that they're satisfied, but they're not willing to recommend them, right? And that's your employee satisfaction. So this is your care staff here, right? This is where you hopefully your current care staff is recommending their friends and family, anyone else who's interested in the same type of career. So the application on this is gather and act on employee and customer feedback to become the company that employees recommend to their friends and customers. If you do not currently have an employee and customer feedback system in place, you need to have that. You need to understand what your employees are saying. You need to understand what your customers are saying so you can tweak these things. You may think you have a really, really good idea. One thing that I hear almost weekly when we talk to new customers and new agencies that come on with Home Care Pulse, I'll check in with them. I'll say, Caleb, you know, I really thought I had a good idea of what was going on inside of my agency. However, you guys found some stuff I had no idea I was lacking, right? So if you're not doing something, if it's internal or external, you need to be doing something to get your customer and employee feedback so you have an insight into what your blind spots are in your agency. So to recap these 6 findings, like I said, these are just, you know, one finding from 6 of the section. There was a ton of data in here, but number 1, sales and marketing, create a buzzworthy reputation by being one of the 26% of providers prioritizing strengthening relationships with their referral sources in the remainder of 2023 and moving into 2024. Recruitment and retention, invest in compensation packages via up in that 75th percentile that will help you produce long-term satisfied employees, such as prioritizing employee referrals, which have the highest acquisition costs with the lowest turnover rate. Training, offer at least 8 hours of orientation training and 12 hours of ongoing training annually. The agencies that are doing that saw an annual revenue of $681,000 higher than agencies that were just offering the bare minimum. Number 4, you know, diversify your payer sources. You know, the top 5 payer sources are what we went through, private pay still being the number 1. But if you're not diversifying your payer sources, you need to do that. Number 5, operations. Prove your commitment to quality and stand out from the competition by tracking crucial KPIs like hospital readmission rates and capitalizing on your success with reputation management program, getting your online reputation out there. And then ultimately, number 6, customer and employee experience, right? Understanding what your customers are saying, understanding what your employees are saying, make sure they're satisfied. Once you've identified them as satisfied customers, as satisfied employees, is a great time to ask them for referrals. You're obviously going to treat someone that's satisfied versus not satisfied very different. You don't want to ask someone who's not satisfied for a referral, but if you can identify who is satisfied, great time to ask them for a referral. So like I said before, I'm going to leave this screen out for a minute. You know, this book has over 300 pages of different data points, tons and tons of good data on here. If you each want to dive in deeper, the next slide has my contact information. Please reach out to me. I'm happy to dive into this deeper in, you know, state specific, region specific, area specific. I'm happy to dive into that with anyone deeper, or we do have representatives over each state. If you want to get really, really granular and go into your state as well, we have someone that's state specific, an expert in each one of your states as well, that we can do that. So there is a code on here. If you want to order a benchmark study, use the code BMR23Caring. That will give you $600 off for attending this for attending this webinar. So with that, I'll move to the next slide. Here's my contact information. So if you want to learn how us here at Home Care Pulse can help you in any of these ways, if you want to learn more about our current products, if you want to learn more about the benchmark study, anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me. I will either reach out to you personally or connect you with the representative in your state. But with that being said, I think we're right there at the 30-minute mark, so I barely made it. But I also wanted to open it up for any questions too, if anyone wants to dive into anything deeper while we're here.
Thank you so much, Caleb, for walking us through those insights. I think, you said it well. There's no one silver bullet, but I love how many practical things you hit on. So whether or not you're doing one of these things really well, there's probably an area of focus that really would pay off for your agency in terms of growth in the coming year. So thank you so much for sharing those. So at this point, we will be taking any questions that you may have. Just submit using the Q&A section within Zoom. And let's get started with a couple of the questions. All right, so you mentioned, Caleb, that some of these trends you've seen over years. How long has this survey been conducted for the benchmark?
So this survey this is the 14th year of the survey. So every year, we add on little things, we tweak little things, but this is the 14th year. It's the largest one so far, but we will continue to do it. But yeah, 14 years now we've been collecting data, and we still have them all. So if anyone's interested in going back and seeing, what was happening back in 2010, we have that available as well. So it's interesting to see how the industry's changed over 14 years.
And you said the most participants. What's the ballpark of how many participants are in?
We have about 1,400 agencies that filled this out. So
robust. All right, and we have a question here. So you mentioned employee turnover rose so sharply this year. What's your opinion on why that took place?
I mean, I don't have a firm answer. I think, looking at the data, I think there's a few different things. First and foremost being some of the benefits the federal government's come out with, right? Some of the employee benefits or unemployment benefits, right? It's easier now not to work than ever. I know I can give you some of the things that I hear all the time, because like I said, I speak with hundreds of different agencies every month, it seems like. But that's obviously one of them. We have more competition than ever. Unfortunately, in the post-acute care industry, our margins aren't extremely large. So we really do have a limit of what we can pay, our care staff when, we have more competition than ever. The minimum wage is going up. I mentioned a little earlier, Amazon seems to be paying an incredible amount. You can even go get a job, at what used to pay $7 an hour is now paying $15 to $18 an hour to flip burgers at McDonald's, right? So I think the competition, there's more competition than ever to get employees. So there's more opportunities out there. And then the second thing is, I think, unfortunately, the younger generation, I hear this all the time, so this is just an opinion, but I hear this all the time. It's harder to bring this younger generation in when it's now easier not to work than it ever has been.
Makes sense. And, I think just to call out, one thing you presented on, I think it's interesting that you point out the solution is not just more money. It's not just higher rates, but people desire training. They desire, to grow in their career. So I think that's an interesting approach of ways you can use. Yeah.
I like what you said there, Olivia. I think just to bring back what I said is like when we talk, we do over 20,000 surveys a month here at Home Care Pulse, just to give you an idea as we're talking to, thousands of different agencies, employees, and clients. And the number one complaint by your care staff over the last year, the number one was training, right? Number two was communication. Number three was pay. And I think sometimes our gut reaction is like, hey, if we just throw money at the problem, it will fix it. It won't, right? Because the top two issues here are training, the quality of training or the lack of training they're getting, and then communication, right? They want to be in the loop as well. So I think if we can overcome those two, the third will have a lot bigger effect. So it's not all about pay. It's number three, and it's always been, 2 or 3, but it never actually seems to be number one. It's number 3 this year.
And I mean, we have people here on a webinar. You guys registered and signed up to learn more to help you grow your business, grow your career. So I think it's natural for people to value that training and self-development. So it's a great angle to approach it. And we have a great question that came through. How do you get staff to complete the training when you do provide it?
Yeah, great question. I think the key there is having engaging training. Make sure that it's something that, you know, is going to keep their attention. They've got to pay attention to, and it's going to help them advance their career, right? My CNA jobs did a study, I think last year, that over 50%, or I think it was like 60-something percent, I forget the exact percentage, of people that come in as a caregiver as a stepping stone, right? They want to advance their career. It doesn't necessarily have to be a nurse, but something in this industry, right? It's a stepping stone position. So one thing that we preach here at Home Care Pulse with our training program is make sure it's engaging, make sure you're rewarding them for taking it, and then most importantly is make sure that it's part of their career path, right? Get a good understanding of where they want to go, and then have them do a career path. Here at Home Care Pulse, we have a library of over 500 different courses, and they're not all basic caregiver courses, right? Some of them are leadership courses, some of them are clinical courses, some of them are different things. So we really believe in a career ladder, understanding where they want to go, that's going to take them to their next step. If it's just, hey, I just have to do this training to keep my job, that's going to be one thing. But if you can communicate to your care staff, hey, I want you to do this training so you can level up, right? So you can get a pay raise. Hey, so you can treat some of our more complicated cases. So those are things that are incentivizing for them. So career ladder is huge. Getting people to level up in their skill sets. Everyone wants to improve. It's human nature to want to become better. So providing something to your care staff where they feel like they're becoming better and incentivizing them with different positions, promotions, things like that helps as well.
Wonderful. I think that's a great insight that we can end our Q&A section on. Thank you so much for sharing that, Caleb. And
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
hope that everybody takes these insights and, you know, finds ways to apply them to your agency. Again, if you have any questions for Caleb, you have his contact. Let me just actually go back. You can reach him here. We'll also be sharing his information as we send out the recording and slides following the presentation. So with that, thank you all so much for joining today's webinar. We at Caring, we welcome your feedback on today's presentation. So if there are any topics that you'd like us to dive into in the future, we'd love to hear it. There will be a survey that pops up as this webinar closes where you can let us know. Now, if you are not yet partnered with Caring.com and you're interested in what an enhanced listing may look like, please contact the phone number that's listed here or email us at sales_homecare@caring.com. And I also encourage you to check out our industry website, partners.caring.com. That's where you can find our entire webinar archive and you can stay on top of upcoming trainings. So with that, we will let you get back to the commendable work of helping seniors. And we hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.